Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining in. Dr. Judy here, Dr. Judy WTF with the Freud, and tonight's topic is negative core beliefs. Are you still crying about the lies? What lies? Well, we're going to talk about that in a minute, and I want to remind everybody that this is a call-in show, so please feel free to call in, and that number is 323-524-2599. And I love to talk to my audience. And so if you have a question, you want to share a little bit about your life, please do feel free to call in. So just a little bit about what I mean by these lies and why I'm putting it together with the concept of core beliefs is because let's mind map it. Let's start there. So let's look at my mind map, which is a pathway to healing from childhood wounds, including wounds of narcissistic abuse. And if you look at panel 1, you will see the light in the background, and you will see the speckles or the shadows or the nicks and scratches of the darkness obscuring the light. So this is a metaphor for your light being the best of your best, and these shadows taking over and literally blocking you from full expression and full growth in emerging into what I call the big I, or the self-actualized version of yourself. So what does this have to do with core beliefs? Well, a lot. When we are wounded in our first few years of life and then continue to be wounded even after the first few years of life, we react. And if you look at panel 2, you could see this reaction, and the cracked lens, the cracked glass, is a metaphor for cracking up. So this represents the amygdala, which is the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn part of our brain. And it looks in the metaphor like it's kind of pink and raw and on fire, and the glass represents that we crack up when we're hurt and wounded. Then what happens out of that is we record all of the messages, both verbal and pre-verbal, meaning before we're able to speak, into panel number 3. So if you look at panel number 3, you will see a blueprint, an encoding, a DNA strand, and this is a metaphor for everything that we have been blueprinted into, the structure of our psychological DNA, if you will. So if you look at the structure of our DNA, it's supposed to be sustainable. It's supposed to be something that supports us and evolves us and gives us a backbone. But in the case of childhood abuse, what happens is that the backbone is not really solid. And what happens with this unsolid backbone is that the person that's receiving these messages, again, pre-verbal, meaning before you can speak, or verbal, after you're able to formulate words, gets recorded in the psyche. And it's easy to record negative core beliefs because really children buy in, and they buy into anything that is told to them. So, for example, if mom says, "Little Mary, you are so ugly. Little Billy, you're really stupid," these encodings go way deep inside the psyche. They don't just sit there on the surface, and nor are they examined for truth purposes. They are just basically ingested, as I like to say, and then they're digested, and then they're manifested in the person's life, and this manifestation takes the form of killing off self-esteem, killing off hope in future growth. It manifests in repeating patterns that play out the negative core beliefs that are ingrained in us, and basically land us in chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. So Why are we breaking down? Because we're wounded, we react, and we encode these horrible negative core beliefs that are the lies that I want to talk about tonight. So, why is it so easy to buy into these lies? Well, on many levels, we can look at it from different angles. Number one, our parents are supposed to be our leaders. They're our role models. They're the ones that we're supposed to trust. They're the ones that know best. I think there was even a show back in the day called Father Knows Best. And so father's supposed to know best, mother's supposed to know best, but if they're damaged from their past history, then they know worst, not best, and then they pass on their psychopathology to the next generation, and then that next generation passes on the psychopathology of the multi-generational family lies and misconceptions and misperceptions to the future generation. And that is why it's so important to talk about this stuff, because if we're just swallowing these lies, if we're just imprinting on these negative core beliefs, then what the Freud is going to happen, meaning we're going to repeat the past. And not only that, we are going to self-fulfill on these negative core beliefs. So if we feel, for example, that we're stupid, why bother studying? Why bother signing up for classes? And if we don't bother studying and signing up, then we end up not progressing, and then we sort of prove to ourselves that we're stupid. So can you see how this becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you will? It becomes a proof theorem, as I like to call it. For those of you who liked math back in school or still do, remember that there were these proof theorems that if there's a triangle and one side is X amount of degrees and the other one is Y amount of degrees, you can deduct that the third angle is going to be proven to be. And so I'm using that again as a metaphor that if you believe this and you believe that, then it's going to be a proof theorem. You're going to live it out and you're going to prove it to yourself, and it's going to revolve around these lies. So can you see how the blueprint is essential to creating these lies? And it's essential that you have this trickle-down relationship, which is what children have with their parents. Parents are the boss. They're the kings. They're the queens. They're the know-it-alls. They're the ones that have the wisdom and the knowledge to define you. And if they define you in such a way that hurts you, you're in trouble. And of course a child will swallow that lie because they believe the parent. So I want you to start to connect the dots of how these negative core beliefs get in there and why they get in there and how these lies are formulated. And now the problem is when these lies go in, they not only go into your psyche, but they also continue to reverberate in there. So it becomes kind of like an echo chamber, if you will. So if mom and dad said that you're not good enough or you're worthless or unlovable or whatever it is the message was, then not only are you activated when they say so or when somebody else triggers that particular negative core belief, but you also have this broken record inside of your head that reverberates saying, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not skinny enough, I'm not, and this goes on and on and on, and it becomes very toxic very quickly. And then we become vulnerable to triggers that will instigate these negative core beliefs. So even when you do manage for a while to quiet your mind, somebody might give you a look and you think to yourself, ooh, they're probably looking at me because they think I'm ugly, or they think I'm fat, or they look at me as though I'm stupid. And so you can see how dangerous it is to swallow the lies and buy into the lies and live with the lies and not dismantle them. So I would love to hear from you. I want to understand what your lies are and how you are still crying about the lies because you believe in them deeply. I work with people every day, every weekday at least, and I hear all kinds of things that they believe in, and I identify these negative core beliefs. And it is astounding because on the outside, people might look really put together. They might even drive nice cars and wear nice clothes and have great jobs and sound intelligent and so on. But then when you strip away the outside and go in to what the Freud they're thinking in there and what lies they have bought into, you might be shocked to know that some of these very together people, and you might be one of them, have very, very powerfully negative, destructive core beliefs that rip apart the fiber of a person's being. Because we identify so closely with these lies and don't identify the lies, which is a big deal that I make at the in the practice of the mind map process, the saying that I say a lot is identify the lies, not with the lies, because when you're identifying with the lies, you wear them. You wear them on the inside out. When you identify the lies, you're basically identifying that they are lies and you're busting them and you're no longer buying in. And that takes a process. And that's why people go through the mind map system so that they can identify these horrible childhood wounds of neglect and abuse like verbal abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional neglect, physical neglect, narcissistic abuse, which is when the parents are apathetic, they don't care enough, they don't have the empathy necessary to give to their children and make their children feel validated and supported and open, lovable, and important. And so when parents lack this empathy, then the children don't have a sense of self-worth. And that in and of becomes a problem. And that in and of itself sets them up to swallow the lies. Lies like, I'm unworthy, or I'm only worth what I do for other people. And so you could see the difference. I hope you're understanding the difference between identifying with the lies versus identifying the lies. One is ingesting it, digesting it, and manifesting it into your life and having it break you down into chaos. We'll pull up the mind map for a minute. You could see how if you buy into the lies, you will easily be triggered into chaos, and then you'll easily build walls of defenses around yourself, and then you can break down into catastrophic emotional breakdowns, and then the clash and the burn of those breakdowns continue to repeat and self-infect. So if there are any questions out there, I would really love to hear from you, and please feel free to call in, because this is a big part of the process of the Psychological Healing Center to identify the lies instead of with the lies. And as all of you know, because we did a show on Thanksgiving, when you're sitting around with family members and you've got the main perpetrators of the lies, usually your significant caregivers, mom, dad, and typically, and then you've got a bunch of flying monkeys around that reinforce the lies, it's really, really easy to get triggered. And that's why I did a show last time with Dr. Elizabeth Crane on the subject of stuffing your feelings in Thanksgiving dinners and how to position yourself so that you don't get activated. But better than that is dismantling the lies so that you don't become trigger happy and that you don't end up breaking down into chaos defenses and then ultimately losing your sanity over it. I think I'll do another show around the holidays so that when people get together for the holidays, they don't feel that they're surrounded by a bunch of triggers of flying monkeys and other individuals in the family who can reinforce these horrible lies such as you're not important, you'll never be number one, you're just never going to be loved by the family. And these holidays bring out the worst of our core beliefs because we're basically, if you will, marinating at a family dinner amongst those who have the dynamics of the family have been set up such that you might be the scapegoat of the family. And if you're the scapegoat, then watch out, because these messages and negative triggers will be projected on you and flying at you, and the flying monkeys will be flying at you, and pretty soon you're going to be crying really badly over a bunch of lies that you never sorted through, that you bought into. And that's why I call this episode, Are You Still Crying About the Lies? Because people will cry for a lifetime about the lies that they've swallowed. And thank you for calling in. And what name would you like me to call you by?
Cinderella.
Cinderella, how you doing?
Good.
So let's see if you're going to end up at the ball this time, and hopefully not get any glass in your feet and break any glass slippers, and hopefully,
No.
right? So tell me what the
The reason I'm calling tonight is the topic is digesting the lie.
Yeah.
And the lie started for me probably, I had my mother and my family very, very young start just speaking horrible things into my psyche.
Yeah.
And my question to you is, can an adult with enough guidance and so forth, education, knowledge, can they heal from this and have a happy life in peace, in your opinion?
Look, that's a big statement. In peace for the rest of your life, happiness. I think that life has its ups and downs, and there are times when we're more vulnerable and less vulnerable. But I will put it to you this way, because I just worked very hard this morning with somebody who swallowed some massive lies. And I was explaining to this person that when you use the truth, okay, I'm a big fan of the truth. And when you tell the truth about the lies, they melt, they disappear, they vanish. It's like Copernicus, who said the truth about the state of the planet Earth. Everybody thought back in the day that the Earth was flat. And then he pulled out his instruments, and it took him the world to a long time to get that the world was not flat, and that it was round, and that you could sail around the world and you weren't going to fall off of that little edge there, the horizon, that the horizon actually kept going. But it took proof, okay? So let's go through that, because we don't just want to heal from that. We want to, here's where I want to put the emphasis. We need to dismantle the lie, okay? Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
So if I say to you, I'm going to tell you a lie. 1 plus 5 is 9. Okay? I want you to
Okay.
I want you to memorize that. I'm your teacher and I'm smart and I want you to know that one plus what did I say? 7, 6, I even
5.
okay, is
1
9.
plus 5 is 9.
1 plus 5 is 9, okay? And then you turn to me and you say, "No, it's not. 1 plus 5 is 6." And I say to you, "You know, you're a stupid idiot. You're not seeing it right. What's wrong with your brain? Don't you know? I'm your elder. Mother knows best. Teacher knows best." And then you kind of start to shrink away. Your self esteem goes down. You get embarrassed. And what do you do now?
Shut down.
Yeah, you shut down. And if you don't shut down, I'll shut you down by saying that if you debate me, I'm going to fail you. And if I fail you, you're going to be even more embarrassed because I'm not going to let you go to the second grade. You're stuck. You're stuck. So you better say yes to what I say is the truth.
Isn't that indoctrination?
No
Isn't that
kidding.
indoctrination to the lie?
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. And now you go home and you think about this and you think, wow, I'm really trapped here because if I tell my teacher that she's an idiot and she's wrong, she's going to fail me and I'm going to suffer some pretty big consequences. So let's draw the parallel between what I'm saying and the parent. So if you confront your parent and you say, "Mom, Dad, I'm not stupid. Mom, Dad, what are you talking about? I'm not unlovable. Mom, Dad, what are you talking about?" What is the parent going to do if they're not that
Well,
healthy?
if they're a good parent, they'll embrace that. If they're not so good, they'll continue the lie.
Exactly. And if they continue the lie, what is the child to do?
Go in survival mode and figure out the best way to survive under those circumstances.
And probably the best way to survive under those circumstances when you're really little is to do what?
To begin lying.
Yeah, and to lie to yourself and say, yeah, 1 plus 5 is 9.
Is 9.
And I'm going to memorize that. And if I ever dare think that it's 6, there's something wrong with my head.
Right.
Okay? So now you ask me, could you ever get out of that trap? So now you're not 6 years old or 7 years old, and now you are an agent, free enough, at least theoretically free, but trapped in your head about all of this nonsense, right? You're still crying about the
Right.
lies. So now you could say, well, I'm going to seek the truth. I really want to seek the truth. So I am now going to take out a bunch of stones and I'm going to count 1 stone and then I'm going to count out 5 stones. And I know how to count. I know how to count. And I'm going to add them up and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? So now you've got the 6. So now what are you going to tell yourself?
That I know the truth.
Yeah, that something's going to clash in your head. It's not going to be the most comfortable thing in the world. Oh my God, they said it was 9. It's 6. Who am I going to believe?
Well, hopefully I didn't, but you hope that a person would believe themselves.
Okay,
and not others.
Correct. And the way they can start to believe in themselves is to have an enlightened witness, a therapist, a psychologist, a friend, a teacher, to say, you know, Cinderella, you're not stupid and you're not crazy. You've been lied to.
You're right.
Okay? Because it does take somebody else outside of yourself, usually, to validate the truth.
Is it wrong to look for validation in life, Dr. Judy?
Depends who you look to. If you're going to look to the narcissist for validation, you're in trouble. If you're going to look to your parents who lied to you and hurt you and fed you a bunch of lies, you're in trouble. So
No, they're all gone. What if I just look to myself and I find a guidance, a person that knows what they're talking about, like your group?
right. So then you've got to seek out wisdom masters, people that aren't necessarily invested in anything more than the truth. They have no axe to grind. They have no reason to tell you what 1 + 5 is 9 to manipulate you and make you crazy and gaslight you. You know, they've got
Right.
no skin in that game.
Right.
Right? On the contrary, if
Right.
you're a good mental health professional, then your game is to help people elevate themselves and clear their cracked lens of perception and see the truth. That's the new game.
Cracked lens of perception?
Cracked lens of perception is when you don't see straight. When your parents say 1 + 5 is 9.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you buy into this cracked lens because you're kind of like borrowing their glasses. Or they say, Cinderella, you're an ugly, raunchy little Cinderella, and the only way you're going to be loved is if you wash my clothes and sweep the ashes out of the fireplace and do the dishes and okay.
Well, you know what? I'm on strike, Dr. Judy.
What did
I'm
you
not
say?
doing that for no. I'm not doing that for nobody.
Well, good.
I'm on vacation.
Oh,
I'm on vacation.
okay. Cinderella's. Well, how's the ugly stepmother going to get her house clean then?
Well, I don't know. She passed away, so it don't matter anymore.
There we go. Okay. So now you can start telling the truth because there's nobody there to demean and devalue and destroy you and manipulate you into this
Right.
cracked way of looking at life.
Right.
So now you can
My
straighten out your
question,
brain.
back to what we were saying in the beginning, can a person that has had distorted beliefs, lies, manipulation, all the things that you mentioned, can a person, once they've connected all those dots, can they, in your opinion, live in some sort of, I don't know, feeling okay about life? And I know you were saying that life can be complicated and dangerous and we've got to watch out and be careful. But can you, in your opinion, can you be okay and live in peace and just shock everybody?
My answer to that is when you bust the lies, you've created that pathway to your freedom. When you push back, and that doesn't mean that you have to convince them that you're right and they're wrong, but in your own mind, you're saying, that doesn't make any sense. Like the person that I was talking to this morning had some real issues with her parents to the point where every time she goes there, they make her sick. Okay, and she tried no contact, and that was really harsh because, you know, she didn't want to have no family. But now she's challenging all of these core beliefs that we're identifying. So the first thing is we've got to identify all these core beliefs. And core beliefs are identifiable because if I say one to you and it makes you sick, then at your core, that's one of your beliefs. So if I say to you, Cinderella, you are stupid, and you go, oh my God, I'm stupid. Oh my God, that hurts so badly. We know it's a core thing. If I say to you, Cinderella, you're stupid, and you think to yourself, no, that doesn't really affect me that much. It's not one of your core beliefs. So number one is we have to identify what they are And then we have to look at the source from which they come. And the analogy I use with that is that if you know that you are taking water from a polluted well, correct?
Right.
What do you expect the water to be? Clean, fresh, drinkable, or poisonous and sickening?
Sickening.
Okay, so if you know that your parents do not want the best for you, if they're already telling you things like you're stupid and you're worthless and you're that and this and all that, and somebody says to you, um, you know, do you think that's good parenting skills? To talk to your children like that? What would you say?
I would say absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Okay, so by saying absolutely not, you're challenging what your parents are telling you. If they're telling you XYZ and it's all horrible stuff, you've got to question their parenting skills. You have to question their own mental health. You have to question the core beliefs that they've swallowed and are now spewing and projecting on you. So, what
Yes,
I'm saying is that the source is tainted. And if the source is tainted, then truth does not flow out of their mouth. Clean water does not flow out of that well. Get it?
I do.
And that's how you bust
Do
the
you believe in
lies.
do you believe in breaking generational curses?
This is what it is. Confronting with the truth. Breaking the
Confronting the
generational curse.
distorted lies.
Right. Identifying the lies. Again, the difference is if I say to you, Cinderella, you are stupid, okay, you believe that you are, you're going to decompensate, oh, crying about the lies, crying about the lies. Oh, I'm stupid. I'm so stupid. I know I'm stupid. I even got bad grades in school. Even the prince said I was stupid and kicked me out of the carriage. Okay? All right. So, but if I say to you, Cinderella, do you know that your stepmother and your parents told you that you were stupid and that you bought into the story? How does that change things?
It doesn't, does it? I don't think it does.
Well, when you're a little girl, it doesn't. You're right, because it's so personal. It's so deep. But as you grow older and you start to trace how that lie got into you, right? If I could show
Mhm.
you, all right, this is how you swallow the lie, okay? Your mother, your father told you these things, and you thought they were the God of your life, and you thought that they were the truth tellers of your life, and now you are having self esteem issues. Is that healthy?
Oh, absolutely not.
So, who made you unhealthy?
Well, if I was little and under their care, it was them, right?
Right. If you had a little bit of a distance and an ability to think, you would say, well, they put that stuff in my head, and that's not healthy. Can you then, if you have a little bit of space from merging with the lie and believing it 100%, do you think you could have like a little bit of space to say, oh, that doesn't sound right. I just ingested something from somebody that did not want the best for me.
Yes, and that's where, when you connect those dots,
But
they can be absolutely devastating.
right,
Soul-wise, it'll take you into a dark night of the soul where you just go, why would any human being want that or do that? But like you said, when they're broken and they're past and all of it. It's very complicated.
It
This
really
world is
is.
complicated.
You're right, because then then you have to face the truth that your parents were not great parents. And sometimes it's easier to face the lie that you're stupid than the truth that they were not good parents for a child. Because
Right.
Alice Miller said it well. She said, she was a psychologist, and she wrote a book called Drama of the Gifted Child. And in the book, she said that the child would rather be the bad one and make the parents out to be the good ones rather than be the good one and make the parents out to be the bad ones. So they'll flip the system. And in the mind map system, we're flipping it back to the truth.
Oh, I love it. Love
Okay?
it, love it, love it. I hope I can learn enough to teach my grandchildren.
Please do. Please do. Because once they get it, a healthy child is somebody who says, Grandma, I can't believe you called me that name. That's not good parenting skills.
Or, Grandma, please don't show up at school with a bunch of red lipstick and lots of beads and a hat on your head. Don't look cringy, please.
Right, right. Okay, so a kid who has the safety to say it, two things are going on. Number one, they have some level of self esteem. And number two, you must be safe enough for them to tell you these things. Because if you're not safe, they
And
won't say it. They'll just think that they'll just roast in shame about you showing up with red lipstick and, looking cringy. They won't say a word. So do you see how
but
kids?
isn't that a gift, Dr. Judy, to have the younger generation trust someone enough in their life with the truth?
Yep, I have a grandson like that, and we get into it. Boy, do we get we get into it. Grandma, I can't believe you did that. And then what is a person going to do? Well, if they are able to and they're responsible enough, you own your own stuff. And then when I screw up, which I do all the time, I'll say, Alexander, that was not good grandma skills. I gotta say, I lost it. Yeah, that was not good.
I can't. Well, I think as well, grandmas are angels in training, so there's no perfect. I don't know of anybody perfect. Haven't met him yet.
Neither have I. Except that what I have to go on is not perfection because I'm not perfect, but at least I have some level of principles in my head, like own your own stuff, self-reflect,
Mm-hmm.
self-correct. If you see
Mm-hmm.
lies, bust them. Be willing to look at the lies that you ingest so that you don't keep doing the what the Freud and perpetuating it and projecting it on other people, or drowning in your own lies and crying about them. So you
Right.
got to go with some principles here because you're not going to have perfect behavior and perfect thinking. So you just kind of, like the mind map, it's a system. You can look at it, you can
Mm-hmm.
stare at it. So a lot of times I'm vulnerable also. I don't always think clearly. I have other issues going on in my life that might um, keep me from being clear sighted. So then I just look at my mind map again and I think about the principles of truth and the principles of self reflection. And then I apply those principles, and then that gets me back on track.
And for me, Dr. Judy, saying I'm sorry when I'm wrong or being humble, it gets me home every single time. And
Exactly.
I'm not bragging. It's the truth.
Because people trust other people who can take responsibility for their own stuff. They're less interested in your perfection than in your being a responsible person, because then you're
It,
safe.
it, 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 yeah, you're right. You know, I've probably taken up your whole show, and I didn't mean to.
No, I'm glad that we got into it because I think people really have to understand that truth busts the lies. And when they're ingrained, they're only ingrained and in there because our family puts it in there and it's multi generational. And then your mother, your father, their ancestors, they swallowed the same lies. And that's why they're spewing them. And then we've got to look at that and say, well, is it truth? Is it a lie? How come it's in there? Why is it destroying me? What am I doing self-infecting on them? And then you go into mind map therapy and then you're reminded, wait a minute, you were wounded in your childhood, you reacted and you encoded. And let's identify your encodings so they don't keep triggering and re-triggering and taking you down into chaos defenses and breakdowns. So I'm glad we did stay with the topic. Thank you. You helped me to clarify it, and you asked very good questions, which is what therapy is supposed to be. The patient's supposed to ask excellent questions, and the therapist is also supposed to ask excellent questions and give truthful answers to excellent questions. So I appreciate it.
Well, Dr. Judy, like you said, it's one couch visit at a time, and I really appreciate you and all your energy, time, love, devotion to making this a better world. Today, actually, during this phone call was the first time I laughed when you kept saying that Cinderella is stupid. For some reason, that makes me laugh.
But you know, when we laugh, it's a way of recognizing the lie, right?
Yeah.
That's why we're laughing, because the laugh is really an expression of that's ridiculous. Okay, but when you're little,
the lie is laughable.
A lie is laughable. Exactly. Thank you for pointing that out, and you're welcome. And I love doing what I do. I feel like I'm honestly the luckiest person because I get to help other people and make a difference in their lives and hopefully generations to come. And that's really my favorite thing to do, other than probably cuddle with my grandchildren and dogs. It's a tough.
There you go, Dr. Judy.
It's a tough call.
Again, I think you're awesome, and I'm bowing to you. I'm saying, just thank you very much for everything tonight.
You're very, very welcome. Take care, and I know I hear from you time to time, and I'd love to know how busting the lies is now going to impact your life. Okay.
Going to make it better starting tomorrow. I'm on it, Dr. Judy.
Okay, good. Stay on it.
All right. Take care.
Thank you. Good night. And everyone listening, good night. Stay on it because it's easy. It sneaks back up on you. And the world is a perfect place to activate these lies. Somebody will look at you wrong. Someone will call you a name. Someone will trip you up and trigger your negative core beliefs. It's going to happen all the time. All the time. And when that happens, you can look at it as an opportunity to identify where the lies live and where your where your triggers live. And if you are being triggered, then you go back and you suss out the lie, you suss out the core belief, and then you take a look at the truth value of it. Who done it? Who said it? Who put it in there? Why did they do that? What's in it for them to do that? And usually what's in it to do that is to control you and manipulate you and to demean and devalue and destroy you, because when you're narcissistic and you have no empathy, believe it or not, and this is sick, and that's why I treat this sickness, it feels good for them to put you down because it makes them feel better for a moment. But it's not sustainable, so they have to keep putting you down over and over again because it's a drug. Any other calls? Any other questions? Anythings?
I do actually have a question for you, Dr. Judy.
Sure.
So a lot of times you talk about and parents that abuse children to make them feel less than or stupid, but when I was a kid, I didn't necessarily have my parents do it, but when I was in first grade, I had a teacher that was very abusive, not
Yes.
just to me, but others. But it did make such an impact on my life. It, even to this day, things trigger me. So I had a reading disorder. And when I, couldn't read words or something, she would pick the book up and throw it across the room and call me stupid and in front of the whole class, and not just me, but other people too. And I started, skipping school and got in trouble for it
Right.
because I didn't want to. And she ended up getting fired at the end of the year. But from that point forward, I really felt like I was stupid because, I can't read. Well, she validated that I can't
Okay,
read.
so
I'm stupid.
let's trace that. Thanks
Sure.
for sharing that.
Sure.
And I'm sure a lot of people have had that experience with a teacher, and it might look like that teacher is the cause, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I have these fear, and yeah, in a way, you're right. The teacher is the cause because they're supposed to be representative of
Right.
good parenting and building up your self-esteem and extension. But actually, if let's say your parents were maybe safer
Right.
and more protective, right?
Right.
We've got to look at that side of it.
Mm-hmm.
Then you would have gone to your parents and said, I'm having a real problem with my teacher because that teacher is treating me differently than how you guys treat me.
Right.
But if the teacher's treating you somewhat the same, then you're not going to necessarily confront your parents because they're just the same.
Right. And it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't just me. There were other people and other kids that she was treating them like that. But of course, when you always feel like you're being highlighted, but because when you're especially at that age. But when my mother did find out, she did visit her. This was back in the late 70s, so it's
But
definitely.
I love that. Okay, because there it is. Your mother
Yes.
was safe.
Yeah.
She found out, and when she did,
My mother was a military police in the army.
Oh.
And so my mother was definitely not a woman you want to mess with.
Okay,
but she did bring it to the board, and then she ended up getting fired.
but you know what? That's why you don't take SHIT
Right.
from people because
Right.
you have the backbone, and why you have the backbone partly to do
Mm-hmm.
or a lot to do with your mother who had your back.
Right.
Okay, so at the end of the day, who got it was the teacher, and I know you went through suffering and maybe some real self-esteem issues, but
Yeah.
I think that when your mother stood up for you, you redeemed a lot of that.
I did, and luckily, just a few grades past that, I had a teacher, Mrs. Rivers, who was extremely, even though she was a tough teacher,
Yeah.
she was very, in fact, supportive
Yes.
and pushed you to become bigger and better, and you can do whatever you want in life. And I ended up writing a poem that got published in a magazine in sixth grade, so from first and sixth. But even then, years later, if somebody would say you're stupid or whatever, it triggered me, and I always stemmed it back to that point because it stays with you.
But it is true that sometimes these teachers go under the radar.
Oh, she ended up
and-
getting another job in teaching.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes parents don't catch these things. And then the child ends up suffering, and then symptoms like stuttering and swallowing your words and not wanting to even show up
Right.
to school. But then there are those other ones, like the lady who was very strict, but then brought out the best in you.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that when you have somebody who has your back, it helps you to have that spine
Right.
that's structure of safety, of truth, of backbone.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's what keeps us in good self-esteem.
Yeah. So the only reason to bring that up because it's not always just parents or that, because teachers are, especially in kindergarten, first, second, third. I mean, that's very impressionable
Very
age.
impressionable, and so are siblings. So
Yeah.
when siblings pit against each other,
Right.
and I have an episode out there called Sibling Rivalry, Parents for the Cause, because sometimes parents set the siblings up to rival so they could be the kings and the queens. Then it becomes more complicated because the siblings are part of the development of these negative core beliefs.
For sure.
So that's why it's so important to identify them, source them, don't identify with them, call them out so that you don't have to swallow them, believe them, and cry about them for the rest of your life.
Right. Amen.
Amen. Any other questions, thoughts? We have a few minutes. Anybody else want to call in? And
A lot of people talking tonight and sharing their experiences. And Charlene said, "Great topic. Sorry I joined late. Never too late.
Never too late.
Yeah, you can always go back and watch it too."
Exactly. And for those of you who want to get notification to these shows, please subscribe. And also know that we give free consultations at the Psychological Healing Center. We do Zoom, we do one-on-one, face-to-face, and you can also look into the new video that I finally released a few months ago titled Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. Be the Cause Mind Map Journey video series. And this, I put my heart, sweat, tears, soul into this one, and I'm really happy with it. And it is the complete system of healing. So if you can't afford therapy with me, you get the video, and I take you through it step by step from the wound of apathy, in this case, because that's what the video is centered around, the wound of apathy, through how you reacted to it and coded it and how it took you down. So there's that. And then, of course, there's me doing therapy and the other members of the team. And if you haven't already, please, please, please don't forget to get your free copy of Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect. Just write and we will download you the PDF. You can also get a hard copy through Amazon.com. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, Tony, for your question, and Cinderella for your questions. And I wish everyone a good night, and I will see you next week. Good night, everyone.